there has been a little bit of news this week that originally it was sort of teased, hey, there's 5 Game of Thrones prequels in production. The first one we heard about was going to be The Long Night. That ended up getting canceled. We know we're getting House of the Dragon. That is like the for sure one happening. Then there were a few that were sort of teased. One of which possibly being a Dunk and Egg story. And now it seems there's sort of show names or possibly sort of maybe code name project names. One of them is Flea Bottom, which I would have to imagine would potentially be that Dunk and Egg series, but there's a few others as well.
Yeah, so what I have pulled up here is just the Hollywood Reporter. This is James Hibbert was the guy who wrote this, and this came out March 18th and was just kind of semi-confirming that there are working titles like 9 Voyages, and that's going to be following Lord Corlys Velaryon, the Sea Snake, Lord of the Tides, Lord of House Velaryon, and you and I were kind of thinking, okay, we already have House of the Dragon where Corlys Velaryon is cast, and I think he's actor, what was his name? Steve Toussaint is going to be playing him. So anyway, he's already there. Is this going to be like in between? We're going to have some House of the Dragon, come out in April and then followed up by, a fall episode or, a little mini series or offshoot spinoff following this character, and why? And what are the voyages and what are we going to see in that? I just think it's interesting that that's one of the projects. I thought let me go over all of them real quick. So we have that one. We also have another one called 10,000 Ships, and that revolves around Queen/Princess Nymeria, who is the kind of ancestor to House Martell, founded the Kingdom of Dorne, right? Largely responsible for a lot of that. A lot of characters are named after Nymeria, and her story is like 1,000 years before the events of Game of Thrones, and it's much older. It actually starts in Essos, and it will be kind of Nymeria saving her people with all these ships, these 10,000 ships, and they go to these different places, and eventually they come to Dorne and they establish that group of people. Which, okay, that one is totally, again, now we're going for even further back beyond House of the Dragon, and so that kind of makes sense. I just wonder if they're going to confuse people with some of this and how they're going to let people know where these timelines line up. You know what I mean? It's going to be interesting to see that. It makes sense that the Corlys Velaryon one would be simultaneous, like it'd be happening like these things happen in House of the Dragon, well, and then we follow him at the same time doing something different. Although there's a lot of his story that you could kind of tackle prior to House of the Dragon and King Viserys. So maybe they're going to do that. I just think it has to make sense, and there has to be a reason.
It does
to do these things. And then, as you said, Flea Bottom is the third one. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, man, to really get a lot of these things happening all at once. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, obviously I'm down for more Westeros, but at the same time, it's not like as big as something like Star Wars or Marvel or DC, where it's like there's so many different characters, there's so many things, and there's so much history with it, right? Like Star Wars, there's tons of like Legends books and all of this stuff. And so even like the hardcore fan base kind of knows what's going on with some of these characters. Whereas with us, it's like, this is kind of a new, really, I mean, there's going to be a lot of new information in House of the Dragon, let alone, and that's probably the second most detailed part of Game of Thrones. I mean, you get the stuff from whatever's told in the series, plus there's the 2 novellas, plus there's Fire and Blood and World of Ice and Fire, and a lot of that's sort of the same information. But it's, I mean, next to maybe Dunk and Egg, that's sort of the next most confined space that where you have actual like sort of information as to what's happening. So I don't know. You're gonna have to prove it to us, I sort of guess, is how I feel about it. Why I am going to be interested. And then it's like the mainstream audience. Are they going to be like, hey, I'm going to watch this show. Oh, this is in Game of Thrones. Okay.
Yeah, I think where you can really see that is with Nymeria. So that seems very not disconnected. It's obviously connected. We know it is, but in that you would have a lot of creative room, I guess, like wiggle room to kind of do what you want to set up characters that we love and then take them away from us. You know what I mean? Invest us in a love story that we didn't know about, that's not outlined in A World of Ice and Fire or whatever, and then do something, wild. I mean, they can incorporate elements of magic and some of the many different faiths and religions in Essos and take us back to a time where dragons and some stuff is still going on in Valeria. That time period is kind of cool to see what's happening with Nymeria and her people as they come over to Westeros. But and that actually might even be, it just depends on if you can pull it off, and is it going to feel too, it's almost like, why go watch that when it has, how does it matter to House of the Dragon? What are the connections? Or maybe it's just a completely separate thing and people are like, yeah, no, I like that better. It had more action. It had more, political maneuvering or people dying, cliffhangers, things like that. That would be potentially cool. You're right. They're gonna have to prove us. They're gonna have to really sell it to us. It looks sick. I know people right now are probably thinking like, why aren't you guys like super, super pumped about this? It is cool. It's just, we're only given nuggets of this and it's just hinted at. They're just tossing around the idea here and thinking through some of these things. So we're going to have to see really how well House of the Dragon does. I mean, if it's got to be, if that's your thing, if that's your main, stage, like we keep talking about these other verses, these places where if you're doing an Arrowverse or if you're doing the Mandoverse or you're doing these places, different streaming services, different companies are trying to build large, interconnected stories. Okay, and yes, it's all interconnected, but when you jump 1,000 years back, I mean, it's just hard. It's hard to keep people connected with the Nymeria arc. It's just basically Dorne, and Dorne was like the lead. I mean, the ratings on it were terrible, right? I mean, like people didn't like the whole Dorne arc in the original Game of Thrones show. Now you're going to go do a whole arc on its origin story. I don't know how that's gonna work.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We will see. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I want to let us know what you guys think about it. Are you excited for these? I mean, Dunk and Egg is the one I'm, probably the most excited for of them. Hopefully someday we get Blackfire Rebellion, but we'll see.